In a quiet Oregon town, Jake spent his days working in a small, weathered garage tucked between a hardware store and an old diner. At 29, he was known for fixing anything with wheels, though business was slow. That afternoon, the rhythmic clang of tools was broken by the low hum of a black SUV pulling up. Jake wiped the grease from his hands as the driver's door opened, revealing Clarissa, a woman in her late 30s whose poise and expensive attire hinted at wealth. From the passenger side, a small girl emerged slowly, wearing a bright dress, but sitting in a wheelchair that barely rolled. Clarissa's face was tense, her voice carrying a quiet urgency, as she explained that her daughter, Lily, had been stranded at home for days. The wheelchair's wheels were stuck, the frame loose, and no specialist within hundreds of miles could repair it in time. Lily's school trip was tomorrow, and missing it would crush her. Jake crouched beside the chair, his practiced eyes scanning the damage. Rust crept along the axles, bolts were missing, and the bearings were worn thin. He touched the frame gently, then looked at Lily and gave her a small smile. "I think I can fix this," he said softly. The job wasn't simple. Jake began disassembling the wheelchair piece by piece, laying each component on a clean cloth. Clarissa watched silently, her phone buzzing with unanswered calls. Lily, curious, rolled herself closer in a spare chair Jake had in the corner. She asked about his tools, his work, and why the garage smelled faintly of coffee. Jake answered each question warmly, though his focus never wavered. He measured each part twice, replacing what was broken and cleaning what could be saved. The hours slipped away, the afternoon light streaming through the garage door, shifting toward gold. Jake discovered the front caster bearings were completely seized, likely from water damage. He rummaged through old storage bins until he found a set meant for a racing bike, sleek, durable, and far better than the originals. Clarissa raised an eyebrow at the upgrade, but Jake simply said, "If she's going to move, she's going to move smooth." He reinforced the frame with stronger brackets, tightened every joint, and replaced the grips with soft rubber handles. Sweat gathered at his temples, but he kept working, knowing time was running short if Lily was to join her friends the next morning. As the final adjustments clicked into place, Jake stepped back and motioned for Lily to try it. Clarissa bent to help her, but Jake shook his head slightly. "Let her do it herself," he suggested. Lily placed her hands on the wheels and pushed. Smooth, effortless motion carried her across the garage floor. Her eyes widened in disbelief before she laughed, the sound bright and contagious. She spun in small circles, testing the freedom she'd been missing. Clarissa's lips trembled as she watched her daughter's joy unfold like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time in days, Lily wasn't struggling. She was free. Clarissa knelt beside her daughter, brushing a loose curl from her face. "You like it?" she asked softly. Lily nodded, still smiling, her cheeks flushed from excitement. Jake stood nearby, trying to downplay his satisfaction, but his chest warmed at the sight. Clarissa turned to him, eyes glistening, and asked what she owed him. He shook his head without hesitation. "Nothing, just keep her smiling like that." The billionaire businesswoman was momentarily speechless, unaccustomed to refusals, especially from someone who clearly could use the money. She studied him, sensing there was more to this man than grease-stained overalls and calloused hands. The garage was quiet again, except for the faint sound of Lily's wheels gliding across the floor. Clarissa realized that while Jake had repaired the wheelchair, he'd given something far more precious her daughter's independence. She thought of the countless transactions in her life, all cold and impersonal, and understood this was different. This was kindness without agenda. The warm light of the setting sun poured into the garage, casting long shadows, and for a moment the three of them stood there, bound not by wealth or status, but by a shared, quiet gratitude. As Clarissa helped Lily back into the SUV, She paused by Jake. "You didn't just fix her chair," she said quietly. "You gave her back her freedom." Jake shrugged, modestly, wiping his hands on a rag. "Sometimes it's not about the money," he replied. "It's about making sure people can keep moving forward." She held his gaze a moment longer, as if committing his words to memory. Then she drove away, her daughter's laughter echoing faintly until the SUV disappeared down the street. Jake returned to his workbench, but his mind stayed with the sound of that laughter. That night, as Jake closed the garage and stepped outside, the cool Oregon air wrapped around him. The stars began to pierce the twilight, and he thought about the day's events. He had fixed many things over the years, engines, bikes, old farm trucks, but this felt different. This wasn't just about parts and bolts. It was about restoring something invisible, something that mattered far more. He smiled to himself, locking the door, not knowing that this small act of kindness would soon ripple far beyond the quiet borders of his little town. Word of Jake's kindness spread faster than anyone in the small Oregon town could have imagined. The simple act of repairing Lily's wheelchair, captured on a passerby's phone, became more than just a sweet local story. It became a symbol of quiet heroism. Within 2 days, the short video was shared thousands of times online. People from different states began leaving comments, many saying they'd never seen such genuine care in a stranger's eyes. Jake had no idea the world was watching. To him, it was just another repair, only this time for someone who truly needed it. The day after the video went viral, Jake noticed more cars slowing down near his garage. Some drivers would wave, others would stop just to shake his hand. Local reporters showed up unannounced, holding microphones and asking for interviews. Jake, unused to attention, politely declined most of them, saying, "I just fixed what was broken." But deep down, he was moved by the sudden outpouring of gratitude from people he'd never met before. Even the mayor sent a handwritten note thanking him for showing what community spirit really means. Clarissa watched the unfolding attention from her downtown penthouse in Portland, re-watching the video over and over. Each time she saw Lily's smile as the wheelchair rolled forward, her heart tightened in the best way possible. She knew Jake hadn't just repaired metal and rubber, he'd restored her daughter's independence and confidence. A week later, she made the drive back to his garage, but this time it wasn't because something was broken. It was because she had an idea, one that might change countless other children's lives. When she arrived, Jake was hunched over an old lawnmower, grease streaking his forearms. Clarissa stepped inside the garage, her heels clicking against the concrete floor, a stark contrast to the oil-stained surroundings. Jake glanced up and smiled in recognition. "Wheelchair still running smooth?" he asked. Clarissa's lips curved into a genuine smile. "Better than ever, but I'm here for something else," she said, her tone softer now. Jake set down his wrench and gave her his full attention. She told him she wanted to fund a workshop right inside his garage, a specialized section dedicated entirely to repairing and customizing mobility aids for children, all free of charge. Her voice caught slightly as she explained how many families she knew who couldn't afford repairs or upgrades. Jake listened silently, his mind racing. It was a generous offer, but it felt almost too big for him. He'd always worked alone, quietly fixing what came through his doors, never imagining a project like this. "I'm just a small-town mechanic," Jake finally said, scratching the back of his neck. Clarissa shook her head. "No, Jake. You're someone who saw a child's need and didn't think twice. That's rare. I have resources, you have skill. Together we could do something incredible." As Jake hesitated, Lily rolled forward in her newly repaired chair, looking up at him with wide, earnest eyes. "You're my hero," she whispered. The words hit him harder than any handshake or thank you note. That moment broke whatever resistance Jake had left. "All right," he said with a nod. "Let's do it." Clarissa's face lit up. Over the next 2 weeks, contractors came in to clear a section of the garage, adding specialized tools, adjustable work tables, and shelves lined with spare parts. A bright sign reading Freedom Wheels Workshop was mounted above the new section. Jake felt a strange mix of pride and humility every time he looked at it. Knowing this space would give kids like Lily more than just mobility, it would give them a taste of freedom. The first family to come in after Lily's was from 2 towns over. Their son's wheelchair had been damaged in a car. Accident and insurance wouldn't cover a replacement for months. Jake worked late, into the night, not only fixing it but adding a smoother braking system and better grip tires for outdoor use. When the boy tried it the next morning, he laughed so hard he nearly tipped over. His parents hugged Jake as if he'd saved their child's life. In a way, he had just not in the way most people measure saving. Word spread quickly among families with disabled children. Within a month, Jake had repaired or customized over a dozen wheelchairs, walkers, and mobility scooters. Clarissa visited often, sometimes bringing coffee, sometimes just sitting and watching. She'd seen many business ventures in her life, but nothing compared to the raw, unpolished joy she witnessed in that small garage. Jake never asked for recognition. He only asked if the kids were happy with their repairs. That humility made her respect him even more. One day, a letter arrived from a family in Texas. They'd seen the viral video and wanted to fly to Oregon so Jake could customize their daughter's wheelchair for competitive sports. Jake had never considered that his skills could help kids chase dreams beyond everyday mobility. Clarissa offered to cover the travel costs. 2 weeks later, the young girl arrived, and Jake spent 3 full days building a lightweight, aerodynamic frame with adjustable seating. When she rolled onto the street for a test run, she grinned and said, "I'm going to win races now." Jake's chest swelled with quiet pride. Months later, Clarissa invited Jake to Los Angeles for a charity gala. At first, he declined. Big city events weren't his thing. But she insisted, "You've been changing lives. People should know who you are." Reluctantly, he agreed. The night of the gala, Jake stood awkwardly in a suit, feeling far from his comfort zone. Then Clarissa took the stage, holding up a framed photo of him and Lily on the day he fixed her chair. The room fell silent as she began to speak. "He didn't just fix a wheelchair," she told the crowd, her voice steady yet full of emotion. "He fixed something far greater. Hope. Hope for children who felt forgotten. Hope for families who didn't know where to turn. He never asked for payment, never sought recognition. He just worked quietly until something broken became whole again." The audience erupted in applause, some even standing. Jake felt heat rise to his face but couldn't stop smiling. For once, he didn't mind the attention. It was for the cause, not for him. After the gala, donations poured into the Freedom Wheels Workshop Fund. Jake hired 2 assistants, both local mechanics eager to learn the specialized repairs. They expanded services to include motorized chair programming, custom seating for children with posture issues, and even brightly painted designs chosen by the kids themselves. The garage became more than a workplace. It became a hub of community, laughter, and second chances. Local schools began arranging field trips so students could see the work being done. One afternoon, as Jake tightened the last bolt on a chair painted like a rocket ship, Lily rolled in with Clarissa. She'd grown more confident since that first day, her movement smoother, her smile brighter. "I came to help," she said, holding a small wrench. Jake chuckled. "All right, apprentice, let's see what you've got." Together they finished the repair, the 3 of them laughing under the warm hum of the garage lights. Clarissa watched, her heart full, knowing this was more than charity, this was a legacy. By the end of the first year, Freedom Wheels had restored mobility to over 100 children, many of whom sent Jake handwritten thank you notes or photos of their adventures. Some parents called him a miracle worker, others simply called him a friend. Jake never saw himself as a hero, To him it was still just fixing what was broken only now. What he fixed went. Beyond gears and bolts, he was piecing together futures, one repair at a time. On a quiet evening, after the last family had left, Jake stood outside the garage, looking out at the open Oregon field behind it. The sun dipped low, casting everything in golden light. He thought about the journey from that first day with Lily to now, and how a single act of kindness had rippled outward in ways he could never have planned. Clarissa stepped beside him, sipping coffee. "You've changed a lot of lives," she said. Jake shook his head. "Nah, just doing my job." But inside he knew it was more than that.